Hello, James Daly.
Hi, Tom.
You have been to play Final Fantasy VII Remake, haven't you, you lucky little boy?
That I have, and what a time I had, let me tell you.
So, first off, what was it like?
It was incredible because you know all the characters, you know the world, but it all feels modern. Everything about the game, particularly the battle gameplay, that feels brand new, yet you sort of get the general theme of the original game. What I liked as well is when you see Midgar, it looks gorgeous. We got to see it in 4K, which is so cool, but the funny thing about it was the fact that it still looked like the pre-rendered background from the 1997 game.
Oh, well, but they were very FMV style, though, weren't they, back in the day? Like, if they've kind of got that same texture to them, but while looking more realistic, that's really impressive.
Yeah, they somehow managed to do that because you knew exactly where you were, but it looked incredible too. So that was really striking.
Saying that it looks the same, does it feel the same?
Yes and no. Like, it feels the same because, it's still Cloud, it's still the Buster Sword, there's still Barret. The actual way you traverse the map, the free-flowing movement, the ability to, engage with areas and jump over stuff. And then, in addition, the actual combat where you're running around the isolated arena you're in. I mean, I think you can even run away from battles now, which is handy. That feels very different. And, of course, as well, you can flip between characters. While Cloud is dealing with an enemy on the ground, you can then hit the D-pad, you'll fire over to Barret, who can machine gun a turret up high, or you'll fly over to Tifa, who can just punch everything. Or Aerith, of course, who's got all these cool spells and really good ranged fighter, but can heal everybody too.
So, mentioning that it's completely different, isn't there some sort of classic mode?
There is. You have the normal things like there's easy, there's normal mode, but if you want to have a more authentic experience to how it was back then, you can choose classic, and that feels a lot more like the old game.
If you don't like change.
Yeah, if you're scared of the new world, this is good for you.
Okay, so what you played, obviously, is being a remake. That means the story beats should be the same. Any sort of changes from what you experienced when you were a child to what is there now?
There are some subtle changes. If you're familiar with that first game, you'll know Cloud with his new friends who are paying him, Barret and everybody. They go to carry out a rebellious act, and it involves a Mako supply, it involves a bomb. What happens is in this game, that explosion is much bigger and causes a lot more damage than anyone expected. It turns out Shinra are more aware, they're smarter, they're a bit more conspiratorial.
So Shinra know you're coming?
Yeah, they watch you on a security camera during the sequence, like you're in an elevator and Barrett's giving it the whole, I'm angry at you, and Cloud's like, I don't care about you. But yeah, they're being watched by the enemy, like Heidegger and people, and they're unaware. But that explains why you get jumped by the Scorpion tank and all the things you've done before. That wasn't as big a problem as the other bosses that we got to fight. The Airbuster was really fun, although I saw some people in the playtest sort of tearing their hair out with that bit. The hardest boss was Abzu. If you remember Abzu, it's like a demon you fight in the sewer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my biggest gripe was the lift sequence when you're going down the lift trying to escape afterwards.
I mean, there was a bit where I was in a lift, but it was just a cutscene.
Okay.
So, but yeah, Abzu, I played that on easy. I was like, I don't know, see what the hype is. Then tried it on normal, and it took, it killed people repeatedly, so it took a lot of Phoenix downs to get back in that. But that was really challenging. I really enjoyed it.
Would you say it's faithful? Would you say the changes are respectful to the original game?
Now, it's still Final Fantasy VII in every sense, but it feels like a brand new game. It feels like if you played the original and loved the original, you should still play this, because it does feel like a new experience.
And that was the whole thing at first. Like, people were crying for a remake of Final Fantasy VII, but there still was that other group of people who said, no, why ruin what was so perfect? So this actually does feel like it's a worthwhile addition to that story.
I'd totally say so. It can exist happily alongside the original Final Fantasy VII. Like, after playing it, I wanted to play the original again. But not as in, I'm desperate to play that because it's the same, as in I want to relive that experience, but still enjoy this. It's a bit like, when you get a really good remake of a movie that makes you appreciate the original, but you still are happy with the new one too.
That's a fair point. In the last couple of decades, we've had, it is decades now, isn't it? Because, Jesus. We've had a lot of different, I think the word is transmedia, of Final Fantasy VII. Advent Children, Crisis Core, things like that, where we've had different variations of these characters. So we've had different voice actors, different people in those roles, different variations of those characters and their styles. These are obviously a new version of that again. Is there anything like you'd like to say about that? Are those characters voiced how you would imagine them to be?
From the moment you hear the first person speak, who, if I'm honest with you, I think was Barret, but I can't recall straight away. They feel exactly how they should. They all sound how they sound in your mind. Like that imagined, when I played the original game, these are the voices I thought they'd have. Barret needs to calm down a bit. the man yells about absolutely everything.
No wonder Shinra knew they were coming.
Yeah, well, not going to say. I mean, people who were outside the playtest zone could hear Barrett. But I really think if you played other games like like Crisis Core, or you've seen like Advent Children, as well, if you played Final Fantasy Dissidia NT, where we have a modern, really pretty looking Cloud in that game, you're still going to totally appreciate these models as brand new versions, incredibly like aesthetically pleasing versions, but also they feel right. Like, the feel you get from these characters is the one that I got back in the day.
After speaking about all those things, anything left that you would like to say about it? Any emotional feelings you've got about the game? Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed it hugely. I can't wait for it to come out, which is very soon now. It's 10th of April. The only thing about it is I do wonder what it means for the future of Final Fantasy. With this remake looking so good, playing so well, feeling like a brand new experience, are we going to get more Square Enix backlog remade?
That's a good point as well. So we were talking earlier about this obviously we planned these things beforehand, it's a secret, that there may be multiple choices in this.
Okay, yeah, so this is a theory. This is like fan theory time. But there's a moment in the game where you wake up in a sewer before the Abzu fight, and you see Aerith lying down on one side, clearly unconscious, and Tifa lying down on the other side. And you can choose who you walk over to try and wake up. And that seems to, I did it twice, and both times I had a slightly different variation of the cutscene because you're waking up one person and the other wakes up on their own. I'm wondering if those little choices are going to mean something further down the line. They might not, but it would be incredible if they do.
It'll be interesting to see, because obviously Gears 5 did something similar in that game, and we've not seen how that plays out in the future Gears 6, which hasn't been announced, but I'm pretty sure is going to happen. I don't think we've ever had a game make a choice like that yet, where it will affect the sequel, the following game. I'm excited to see how that plays out, if your theory is correct.
If it is, I'm calling it as like the greatest guess of all time.
So anyway, James, I think we've spoken about everything we want to speak about for Final Fantasy VII, the remake. Any final words?
Well, the game's out on the 10th of April, like I said before, and a massive thank you to Square Enix for letting us play the game early. I genuinely think, despite it being a remake of a 23-year-old game, it's got the potential to be Game of the Year.
That's lovely to hear. You're wrong, it's Halo Infinite. Thank you, James. Have a good evening.
Bye, Tom. Love you.
Love you too.